does that. She thinks she's been watched.
We are. We are being
Listen
watched.
to, listen to, yeah.
It's setting up the meeting. I know it says it's live, but it's not yet. It's just doing this whole like stat. You have to go this, and then just put a name in there.
That's okay.
And then we're gonna do it. We'll do a Phil and Phil intro, and then we'll intro you. So just give
Okay.
us.
Yep.
So, how do you pronounce your name?
Shira Mustardi.
Shira Mustardi. That's a very stage name, isn't it?
And neither of them did I have when I started life on this planet.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Shira
I was
Mustardi.
Sarah.
All right, don't confuse me yet.
No, I won't. I'm not going to start. Don't worry.
Shira Mustardi. Yeah, that's like you're some kind of hit star. That name. And you've got a star above your head. I've just noticed.
I have. Yeah.
Oh, we're just gonna go. I'll play with the sharing other places in a minute. So,
Ding.
hello, welcome. I'm Phil,
And I'm Phil.
and this is the Phil and Phil show.
So, today,
So here we are. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Phil. Come on.
Well, I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona, and Phil is in special surprise Brighton.
Brighton. Special visit down to Brighton.
Wow. So how's your week been going?
I've got to think about that. It's been pretty good. Yeah, I've been working. I've been building.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been experimenting with B12 and iron and other nano metals as well.
Mm-hmm.
And exploring the Dirty Gene book, Phil, that I was telling you about last week, which is it's been really interesting.
The Dirty Gene book. What's that?
There's a guy called a doctor. I'd like to get him on our show, Phil. Dr. Ben Lynch has written a book called Dirty Genes, and it talks about how we are born with certain genes that are possibly dirty, so they're not functioning properly, and how we can get dirty genes from doing things in life.
You mean like playing in the woods and sliding down dirty banks and stuff?
Yeah, so that'll give you like the good health genes, and then McDonald's will give you the bad health genes.
Okay.
So you can build a McDonald's body or an organic natural life body.
Right.
And we both, we all know the end results of either one of those two. So it's I haven't read a great deal of it yet, but it's basically talking about epigenetics, how actually we're not the victims of our genes, but we're actually the drivers of the vehicle. So we can guide our genes to express, which gives us a lot of freedom and a lot of power. So that now brings me on to our guest, Shira Mustardi. Now, I found Shira on the internet while I was looking for someone that I wanted to have a live blood reading with. And Shira came up with great testimonials, and also she teaches live blood analysis in the UK. So I approached her, first of all, I think it was a year or two ago, and then again just before lockdown. So we all know what meeting people meant. That meant it didn't happen. So I said, well, let us know when you're available. And I got this message, bless her, that said, Phil, I can do live blood. And I was like cracking on, coming down. So I drove down to Lewes and had my appointment with Shira, which was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And it links in with other things I was doing. So let's get on track for our talk tonight. Our talk tonight is on live blood and live blood microscopy with Shira Mustardi. So, Shira, if you would like to introduce yourself to us and just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got what made you decide to do live blood.
Cool. Hi everyone. Thanks, Phil. Thanks for that. It's very sweet of you. I actually do teach an online course, so it's available worldwide. We now have students all over the world doing our course, which is quite exciting, getting feedback from doctors in Canada and Zimbabwe and all kinds of places.
Wow.
So the word is spreading about live blood analysis. And I first came across it when I was at a Tony Robbins conference in Hawaii. And he was doing something I'd never seen done before, which is taking a couple of thousand people in a conference over a period of 8 days, totally immersing you in physical mastery, emotional mastery, mental mastery. And we were moving through these different phases. And one of them, in the physical mastery, we did lots of different things. We did rebounding, we did BMI stuff, we did all kinds of other stuff. And one of them was, you're going to get your blood done. And I didn't know what that meant, but we were in a room with, hundreds of microscopists, and you'd have your turn. They'd take your blood from your fingertip and put it up on the screen and then talk about what all these things meant. And I was fascinated. It wasn't until years later that I actually managed to train in it, because it's quite expensive to get the microscope. They're really powerful microscopes, proper medicinal laboratory microscopes, pathological microscopes. But the reason I was even at that conference was because I'd been on a bit of a journey from suffering chronic fatigue back when I was like 24. And at that time, I was really immersed in the world of the esoteric world of healing. I was a crystal therapist. I was training people in self-healing at the College of Parapsychology. I was running a clinic in my own house. I was working in a clinic too. So I was quite busy. I'd also trained as a firewalk instructor with the same person that trained Tony Robbins. And that's one of the reasons why I ended up going on this thing, because I was curious about him, to see how different his methods were to the ones I had studied. But I was really into the esoteric stuff, and I could meditate. I could teach other people to meditate. I ran stress management workshops and all sorts of things. So I was really au fait with the whole aura, the meridians, how to balance it, use sound, use light, use crystals, use chanting, all sorts of stuff. Learned loads. And then I got sick. And that wasn't enough. Knowing how to de-stress yourself, for me, just wasn't enough. Yes, I could meditate, but I had to take a look at the physical vehicle that I was living in, and it was telling me it wasn't okay. I couldn't push it anymore. I couldn't just keep going. So a lot of things built up for me to get to that state. But the thing that got me out of that hole was nutrition. And once I started paying attention to what I was eating, how I was eating, how I was living, my cycles of living, sleep cycles, all that sorts of exercise cycles, thought cycles, of course, as well, but also what I was putting into my body. It was amazing how from getting chronic fatigue to 2 years later being functional again and up and running and active in life and not having the symptoms I had before. And so that shuttled me off into, I need to know more. And I ended up studying with Barbara Wren at the College of Natural Nutrition, because she really brought into focus how not only will diet and nutrition help you, but also there are things you can do to support your body and support all the systems in your body. You can give it energy through things called naturopathic techniques. You can give your body energy, you can give your organs energy. You can help them release toxicity. You can manipulate your body and help all the systems of elimination, of assimilation, of all these different systems by doing different things that you have control over yourself that you can do. So that was great. And I loved that it was a naturopathic style. And so really the live blood analysis just takes it another step further, because not only are we all unique, and the thing about nutrition and what I'd studied about nutrition was understanding this uniqueness of each of us. We've all got hearts, livers, lungs, brains, all the rest of it. But they are actually biochemically individual. So some of us have a heart a slightly different size and a slightly different shape and a slightly different position. And these things, although maybe subtle, actually do have an impact. And it links into what you were saying, Phil, about the genes, because of course, we are composed of the genes that we inherit through the lineage of our forefathers. And those influence our health. They give us our strengths and our weaknesses, our constitution. And they will influence how our body travels through the journey of life, how we deal with different toxicities, how we deal with different illnesses and infections, and how we deal with stresses, all of those things. So it's everybody's path to disease or ill health or imbalance is unique, in the same way that everybody's path out of disease and towards health and balance is unique and should be unique. It should be designed to fit what's happening inside you and in your cells. And that's why live blood analysis can be such a great window into what is going on inside your cells. The blood doesn't lie, it presents itself. And as long as you're trained properly and you're very experienced and you know what you're doing, you can take the blood out of that person, put it and mount it on a microscope without damaging any of it and preserving its life force. And you can observe it in action live. And this has so many benefits in understanding the quality of the cells as well as the quantity of the cells. And the thing that links with what Barbara Wren was saying with the live blood analysis as well is that she believed and she taught, and I agree with her, that we, by looking after this vehicle and allowing it to vibrate at the highest possible rate, we can reach our true potential. We can get higher to our true potential. So what does this mean to vibrate at our highest rate? Well, it goes right back down to the cells, and that literally the cell membranes have an electronic charge on them. And we want to, in order to reach enlightenment or reach our potential, we have to maintain the cellular charge potential on our cells. So I'll explain what that means. So you have a positive and a negative charge, positive on the outside, negative on the inside, no, negative on the outside, positive on the inside. And that means that there is this polarity between the inside and the outside of the cell, which creates a charge, which creates this movement, and it creates dynamic and vitality, dynamic energy, vitality. And we want to make sure all our cells have that potential. It's called zeta potential. And it's making sure you have that charge around the membrane. To get the charge around the membranes have to be composed of the right ingredients. Okay, so that's where the diet comes in, that's where hydration comes in, that's where stress or de-stress comes in, all the things that can influence that charge. And once you have the charge around the membrane right, you then attract electrons to the membrane. So we're talking about quantum particles, we're talking about particles, okay? And once those electrons are attracted around the membrane, you radiate biophotons. And we know of photons, some of you may have heard of photons. Photons are the quantum particles of light, of EMF, which we're exposed to constantly, all different frequencies, traveling at us, traveling through us, absorbing into our skin, through our eyes. We are photosensitive. So we absorb photons, and we're showered by them all the time. We're showered by the sun, and the quality and quantity and vibration of those photons will change throughout the day, change throughout the seasons, hence why we are affected by seasons and we're affected by light. But also at nighttime, they are showered on us from the universe too. So we're affected by our universe as well. So we are creatures of nature. We respond to light in the same way that the plant, well, not in the same way that the plants do, but as plants respond, so do we, because we are creatures of nature. You can't divorce us from nature. There's no way of divorcing us from nature. So in a sense, if you can maintain cellular health, and you can look at cellular health by looking at your blood live, you can maintain or aim towards your own potential, and you're unique. So you need that potential, that frequency to come through you and through your cells to radiate it out. And if you do that, you then attract more, you can hold more light in your body, and you can emanate more light from your body. You can be enlightened. So that's like the Mecca. We will all be kind of like this, sometimes head just above water, sometimes sunk right down under. You know, we struggle in this world. It's an unprecedented time where we are showered with unbelievable frequencies that are not natural, and nobody really, it's a big experiment, nobody really knows how it's going to affect us. So the live blood, through that I can assess the cell health. I can assess cell membrane health. I can assess hydration. I can assess the inner terrain of the body, because the plasma that the blood cells float in has come from all your other tissues. The plasma is the thing that delivers nutrients and takes away toxins. So when you take a little drop of someone's blood, you're freeze framing the in and out of all the tissues. So what toxins are coming out and what nutrients are going in, and what state is it at. So you're checking the pH balance, the hydration. You can, you can assess quite a lot from the blood analysis, as Phil discovered when he came to see me.
Yeah, that was it was great. And I think because of the work that I've done over the last 20 probably 25 years, I can see the change in my blood, which was, it's really good, because instead of like when I first went, it's like, oh my god, where do we start? It's kind of clear now. It's the next step we've got to take, as opposed to, okay, we've got to, get rid of,
Yeah.
we got to get rid of wheat, we got to get rid of dairy, whatever.
Yeah, it really helps pinpoint your direction. And you came to me thinking that you had this really strong heavy metal load, and actually the dry blood is something I do alongside the live blood, which is just as interesting and fascinating. When you allow a drop of blood to start coagulating, the clotting process starts, and then you take layers, imprints off of that drop, let it dry, and in that dehydration process, it's to do with the non-Newtonian biological fluids have a certain process when they dehydrate, and they create convection currents, and it takes tiny particles, and if there are heavy metals in there, they'll be flung to the edges as this dehydration happens. And so in a dry blood analysis session, you can see heavy metals as a dark rim, almost like someone's got an eyeliner pencil and just drawn around the outside. So you can really assess what is in the blood now. Because if you've moved heavy metals, or they're in the tissues, or you're being intoxicated and they're slowly drip feeding into your blood, they would be in the blood. You would see it. And actually, we didn't see that. Sorry if it's giving away client confidentiality. Maybe I shouldn't say anything.
We already talked about it on the show last week, so you're good.
Okay.
That's perfect, because one of the challenges, of course, putting ourselves in the position like me and Phil have put ourselves, is everyone expects you to be perfect, right? So we're doing the raw food thing, we're doing the vegan thing, we're doing all the lifestyle stuff, we're bouncing, we're walking, we're mountain biking, whatever, we're doing live blood, we're taking the supplements. And hey, we're not perfect. So, one of the things that we are about on our show is trying to be real, not hide what's going on, and present this kind of bullshit to everyone that it's all perfect and this is what you've got to achieve.
Yeah.
But actually, we're both one big experiment. So what I'm hoping to do by, sharing what me and Phil do by sharing this stuff is to keep it real. Is
absolutely.
Get up here, tell people how it is, share what's going on, share the struggles. The fact that I've come to you, and actually there isn't heavy metals in my blood. I mean, that's amazing, right? So I've done a massive amount of work to go from being very mercury toxic to having mercury poisoning to you saying, oh, that isn't a problem, Phil. So happy days, right?
Very much happy days. And it's quite important that you know these things, because if you continue we're creatures of habit, and often what we do is we get stuck in a sort of cycle, whether it be I'm going to have my green juice every morning, or whether it's going to be this is my lunch and this is my dinner, or I always do this every week, and we forget to sort of adjust it to the seasons and to what's happening and to, you know, where we're at. Yeah, sure, a positive habit that you integrate into your life is a great thing, and I don't think you can go wrong with juicing. But if you're doing something like a detox, which can be quite taxing on the body, quite draining sometimes, and it can drain you of nutrients, it is important that you know whether you should be doing it or shouldn't be doing it, whether you should be pushing, like parasite cleanses as well. People sort of just assume, oh, I've got parasites, I'm sure I've got parasites, or I think I need to do a parasite cleanse. I mean, not all parasites are bad anyway. Okay, so we're not sterile, we're not supposed to be sterile. There are different relationships that we can have with different microorganisms in our body. There's no need to go around attacking them. And also remembering that if you attack a particular microorganism, you may be attacking yourself too, because we're actually a supraorganism. We are a collection of other species living within us, and the bacterial, our microbiome, which is made up of fungi, viruses, and bacteria, is more, the cells of those are more than our own body cells. So really going in and attacking things and doing all that sort of stuff you may be attacking yourself. And it's the same for detoxing and doing anything that really extracts and takes out things, or moves and pushes things, or increases the work of the liver and all of that sort of stuff. It can be quite damaging. So it is important to monitor progress as you go on a detox, so that you can see if it's working. Sometimes people come to me, they don't think they've got parasites, but they've got toxicity, and we start working on toxicity, and the next time they come, they've got parasites. Well, where did they come from? Did they just appear? No, they hide in your tissues. And as you start changing your internal terrain and the pH that are inside your body, those parasites start to become a little bit uncomfortable, and they don't survive anymore. And so what you see in the blood is the parasites coming out. It's not a case of suddenly you've got a new infection. But, you know, these are the things that, as a well-trained and experienced live and dry blood analyst, that you learn over time through self-experimentation. I mean, I've got my own microscope, and I really want people to have their own microscopes. It's not actually legally or ethically a very sound thing to say, but I do believe that if we could have control over and understand our own body and monitor ourselves, it would be such a gift, especially now, considering actually, yeah, no one's perfect. So yeah, you said that already. Of course not. Nobody's perfect, no matter what. There's no one size fits all. There's none of that stuff. So to keep it real, we're all going to be under immense pressure on our health from all angles, because this world is not getting lighter and cleaner, and you know, it's getting more and more toxicated, and we are having to deal with that, with the air we breathe and the water we drink, the food we eat, and the messages that come at us, and the EMF frequencies that come at us from media, and etc. etc. So yeah, we all need to be equipped with how can we understand our bodies so that we can pick up the signals when we feel like something's out of balance and know what to do about it. And then how do we keep navigating our way through that path? Because, you know, 80% of the diseases across the planet, the chronic diseases across the planet, are lifestyle induced. So, yeah, you know, we have control. We've just been told that we don't, you know, we've been programmed that actually you're not qualified, you can't say this, you can't say that. I am gagged from saying so much publicly, because I am not medically trained, so I'm not part of the medical paradigm. Mine is slightly different, you know, so they seem, but however, I have a responsibility to my clients and the general public, because I'm working with blood and I am looking at things through a microscope, and that can be misconstrued. That is a powerful message of, I'm going to diagnose you and I can see what's going on. And the biggest question I always get is, can you see cancer, you know? And of course, any disease diagnosis is a no-no. We don't deal with that. We don't treat it, and we don't deal with it. We can't even, you know, go there. But I can go with, well, let's get an idea of how your overall health is, what's happening, because you can see disease processes in the blood. Can't diagnose anything or label anything, but you can see disease processes.
Yeah, you can see indicators. I love live blood and how it just gives you immediate feedback of like what's going on, and like you just like it's like a picture and you can't deny that it's like, oh
Mm.
wow, my blood cells are stuck together, or you just it's like, wow, look at that, so but what is live blood and how does it differ from, don't doctors do that already? And I know the
No.
answer to this, of course, like, but don't like what's special about live blood and how is it differ from what doctors do with stained blood and all that stuff? So
Yeah, I mean, actually, if live blood if having a microscope in a surgery and being able to pay a microbiologist to assess patients' blood was a financial viable thing, they would do it because it comes from medicine, right? People that are trained in medicine look at blood under a microscope. The staining part of it, well, this is all to do with scaling up medicine. So, you need a laboratory, you need machines, you need quantifying and machinery. And when you start having doctors' surgeries and little hubs and in every village, you can't have microscopes everywhere. You just can't. So it kind of scaled itself up, and that lost the live blood element out of medicine. It went after that. The difference is that I'm seeing live cells, so I'm seeing the quality of them. And actually, there's a lot of things if I was medically trained, if it was a medically trained professional looking at somebody's blood, there would be certain things they could diagnose from looking at it. And there are things that they would issue further tests to be done. And there are things that are obvious. When I'm looking at blood, if I can see that there's a definite indicator, I would always be recommending they go to the doctor to get a proper blood test, because that's the route they have to go down. But obviously supporting nutritionally and diet-wise as well. So there's not that much of a difference in terms of its weight and usefulness in looking at and assessing health. But it's divorced from mainstream because of its expense and practicality. It just, it wouldn't work for millions of people. So it is sort of a privileged service for people to be able to have access to, definitely. And it's expensive to train in.
Can you talk a bit about the history of it? Because you shared with me a little bit of the history, and I found that really fascinating.
It is fascinating because it's not. So when the microscope was invented, which is back in the 1500s, it really changed the way it changed science. It kind of was the birth of science. Up until then, there were hypotheses, and there was Hippocrates, there was the miasma theory, the theory of the four humours, all feeding in. And remember that actually medicine was very much tied to religion, and it was very much tied to culture and superstition. So the science as we know it it was very much controlled by that. You weren't actually able to dissect human bodies. So what they knew, they were making stuff up about how things work and what things are, and they could only really look at bodies when they had died naturally, although I'm sure there were people looking at bodies that didn't die naturally. And so it took a long time for us to really map out what's going on in the body. And it was a guessing thing. Imagine without microscopes, how would you know? You wouldn't even know a cell existed. And they didn't know a cell existed until microscopes were invented. And then that changed everything, because you were suddenly able to see a world that you couldn't see before. You were seeing a micro world. And that's when microorganisms started to come to the forefront. Cells, yes, 1600s, they started to realize there were blood cells. And the blood was studied all the time. It was the easiest thing to get hold of without killing the person was blood. And you could look at it under the microscope. So the first thing they would do is look at blood live. That's how the first bit of learning on microscopes and cellular pathology came about, because they were looking at it live. They got into staining a bit later because they wanted to preserve cells. And so staining also is about being able to identify different cells, because different cells will take up different stains. So that way they can assess how many of a certain cell is in a sample by staining it. But staining it also kills it, and you're not looking at it live. It's a different process. But so you have George Bernard, who is the first sort of guy that really came along and started thinking that it's more than the microbe. There's something else going on. It's not just the microbe that comes in and invades you and kills you. Germ theory was starting to bubble around. So there was all these ideas taking off, and science was taking off. There was so much going on. This is like 1700s, 1800s. They're all vying for like the new discovery, because you imagine you're just discovering cells. Suddenly you could see tissues and cells, and it was just like, wow, what else is there? What else can we find? And there were lots of diseases around, so there were lots of pus and lots of disgusting things to look at, and they were finding all these microorganisms, and they started to be able to say, this is the anthrax, this is the TB bacteria or microorganism. So they couldn't see viruses yet, but they could see bigger bacteria. But I think Pasteur came along. So George Bernard was into this. He called it the milieu intérieur, which is French for the internal terrain. He started the whole internal terrain stuff, and he looked under the microscope and saw in blood. He did live blood analysis, and he saw these things called microzymas, which he called little enzymes, little buzzing enzymes. No one was looking at them. He was like, but what are they? You know, these things, they're alive. And this started off a whole route of scientists and exploration into what's in the blood that veered away from the cells and looked into more of the smaller particles. And that lineage led to, you've got Pasteur on one side and you've got Béchamp on the other, which is quite a sort of famous duo of the 1800s, late 1800s. And Pasteur was very charismatic, and he managed to get quite a few backers, financial backers behind him, because he solved the fermentation issue for alcoholic beverage industry. They were having a terrible time making brews, and he kind of worked it out. But he actually stole Béchamp's work, so there was a lot of rivalry going on, a lot of stealing of work. And but however, Pasteur contributed greatly to science. Actually, I don't like belittling him because he did a lot of stuff, but he thought it was all about the microbe and the cell, all about the germ, and that's where germ theory really took off. And it was seen that a disease comes from without, not within, which is completely different to the terrain theory, which is all about how your internal terrain generates the disease. You know, there was actually a much more hardcore belief back then of how these microzymas were actually the very building blocks of cells, the very building blocks of life, and they would come together and aggregate and organize themselves to become cells eventually. Which is a lot more hardcore, but he would watch them under the microscope and see them come together and make shapes. And he wasn't the only one. Béchamp was the same. He did the same thing. He saw this by observing live blood. He saw these things come together. So actually, just to clarify things, this part of it is not really about the cells. Okay, this is about the internal terrain and what we would call the blood's microbiome. So blood was always thought to be sterile. It's not. And these guys knew it. But it was just never, it wasn't the popular belief and the popular theory. And by this time, Pasteur's taken off. There's loads of money in this. Pharmaceutical industry started happening. There was all kinds of medicines being peddled. And this guy Pasteur was going to prove all this stuff and it was a great investment. Whereas the other stuff was all about the blood isn't sterile. It's got its own microbiome, and they weren't just looking at blood cells. They were looking at the things around the cells and the things that release from the cells over time when you watch them. And you do see these tiny little white dots on the screen buzzing around, joining, becoming bigger, forming into rod form, bacterias, all sorts of different forms. And there's a whole cycle. And that cycle can be seen in the blood if the pH of the internal terrain isn't quite right. So if your internal terrain switches the pH, it creates a different environment, and these bacteria will adapt and organize themselves to cope with that environment. But they are symbiotic. They're in our cells, around our cells, in our flesh, in our tissues, everywhere. And they are tiny little proteinaceous colloids, devoid of DNA. And they will basically, any invasion of microorganism from the outside, they will support your immune system in killing it off or dealing with it, digesting it. They actually digest it. They digest proteins and stuff like that. So they are your helpers, but they can only survive if your body's in the right sort of internal terrain. The pH is balanced. So there's this whole cycle. And so one of the things I do when I do live blood analysis is I look at it's called pleomorphic cycle, the pleomorphic cycle. So back to Béchamp and Pasteur. Béchamp starts looking at all this stuff and writes amazing books about it. Blood and its Fifth Element is one of the books that Béchamp wrote. And then along comes Rife a bit later, and Rife is similar. He's doing similar things. He's following this train of thought, and he believes that, you know, and this time we were looking at viruses, and he built an amazing microscope with prisms and crystals and different refractive elements so that he could find the different frequencies of the microorganisms and of these cycles. And he saw and witnessed these organisms changing form and changing shape and becoming something else, a different bacteria. And this is why it's called pleomorphism, not monomorphism. So by this point, bacteriology had taken off, and they were starting to, just like in plants when they were starting to, the botany, and they were starting to draw all the flowers out, and this is how it starts, this is the seed, this is the germ, this is what happens when the flower comes out, this is the fruit, and they were mapping it all out. They were doing the same with bacteria, erroneously. It's now been proven, but of course these things get set in stone and it's really hard to change it. But bacteria don't have just one pathway. They share DNA. Even when they're dead, they share DNA, because their cells are set up differently. They don't have a nucleus. They literally just merge. They literally just fuse, and the exchange of information happens in a nanosecond. So they can morph. They can become different types of bacteria depending on the environment they're in, which is why they'll be around long after we've gone. They will be the surviving organisms. Yes, they're amazing, intelligent, and they work together and they communicate and they evolve for the good of for the good of the organism. They're not really individual. They work in colonies, as does the microbiome in our guts and all the other microbiomes we've got. So Rife witnessed these changes, and so really back in the day when they were looking at diseases and they were going, this is the TB pathological organism, and even now German measles, chickenpox, all the ones. The idea that there is just this one bacteria, and if you just attack that or stick a vaccine in, or you know, you can create an antibiotic, you kill that one off. But you don't. How many times do people take an antibiotic and suddenly they get infected again? But this time it's a slightly different bacteria. We need another antibiotic, and then it's another one. Well, that's because bacteria share DNA. So they're always changing, they're always morphing, and they're always shedding, and they're always adapting. And so much so that now we have an antibiotic crisis. We can't create any more antibiotics. Time's up. We have superbugs, bacteria that have learnt, because antibiotics are bacterial substances from other bacteria that will kill each other off, because they do that. They control each other. I'm rambling so much. Anyway, so we get to Rife and we get his microscope, which is amazing. He gets all the frequencies and maps all the frequencies of all the different morphological changes and all the different bacteria, and he can also zap them and kill them off, and he can cure an infection of an out of control bacterial virus in somebody by zapping it. Anyway, he disappears. He had loads of people following him, and there was big money behind him, but then suddenly bang, gone, along with his microscope, and that hasn't been found. But you know, there's loads more people. There's Nassens as well, and he did similar things. He mapped this organism and how it changed and morphed in the body. He called it something else. He called it somatids, and he developed is it 714X, which is like a type of liquid that you take, and what it does is it makes your own, instead of killing stuff off, it just gives information to your symbiotic blood microbiome and the bacteria I'm talking about. It gives a message to them to revert back to their symbiotic form. So rather than actually going out and killing stuff, I think it gets them to revert back. And he cured loads of people, and he was taken to court because he had been saying he was curing people of cancer, but he won his case because he had so many people vouching for him with all of their doctors' reports and everything. It was a full-on case. So the science I am doing with my microscope, although I'm not medically trained or scientifically trained, really, in truth, is very scientific, and it has a theoretical background, a philosophical background, as well as a science background. It's just not mainstream, and I'm not peddling pharmaceutical products. So it's got a long history, and it stands on the shoulders of some scientific giants that were gagged, and but their work still stands, and it's still out there.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because in the science community, it's classed as pseudoscience.
Mm,
Except for me, it's been really useful. You know, it's
mm,
so I'm not. The thing is, I'm not looking for a disease, right?
mm.
I'm looking for what do I need to do in order to perform better.
Yeah,
What do I need to take out, put in? You know, what can I do to help my body perform at its best? And
yeah,
and I think that's the shift that we need, isn't it? Is to
mm,
go from looking for a disease or a problem into going, actually, okay, whether whether someone's feeling ill or whether someone wants to perform better at, say, a sport or generally in life, you know, if they're at work and they need to outperform to get to the next level of their career, you know, looking at live blood and learning to biohack, to sleep, to eat, to
mm,
field there's a lot of mountain biking rebound. There's so many tools that we can
mm.
actually add in, and for me, the live blood's really useful
It
because
is.
we can hone in on are you absorbing, because everyone that trains, right, they're whacking all this protein, and
Mm,
actually what we need to be looking at is, are we absorbing it? Because if we're not absorbing it, there's a
mm,
whole other problem.
mm.
And
Yeah.
that's where the live blood's brilliant, isn't it? Because it shows you
Mm,
whether you've got not enough protein, excess protein, whether you're absorbing it, whether you're not absorbing it, whether you're
yeah.
utilizing it. It shows
Yeah.
you all that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. And whether it's also, you can have people, a lot of people really want weight loss. And it's quite interesting because actually you can be carrying quite a bit of weight, but you could be starving,
Yeah.
because if your body is not processing and eliminating and absorbing, then it's in starvation mode. And this is just the way that one of the things about weight loss is it can be the way in which your body deals with that. I mean, it's very complex. Everybody's body is different. But yeah, aiming for health rather than treating disease, I think, is a much better framework
Yeah.
to move forward. It's just a
That's
shame that, and also, yeah, I mean, you could be doing what you think is right. I mean, nowadays there's so many. I have there's someone I know who just has the most amazing body. He's got this lung capacity. He's been tested for it because he was telling me about it. How his lung capacity means that he can run, hardly get fatigued, because he's got this amazing lung capacity. He can actually take in so much oxygen, and he's a Ironman competitor. He's 47, I think, but he's still doing it. He's amazing, and he physically he looks great. He takes care of himself. He's really knowledgeable, but he's really into biohacking. And so he tells me about all the things he starts taking, and I'm like, why are you taking that? What are you taking it for? How do you know it's working? How do you know you don't have enough of it? What are you doing that for? um and he's but well, it says on the label that it's good for this and good for that. So you know that there's so many products out there that are available over the net that people can just read in a magazine and go, that's what I need. I'm
Yeah.
going to buy that, and then put it into their body. But what you got to remember is everything you put in is a message that your body has to interpret. And if it can't break it down and it can't interpret it, it can't use it, and it becomes another stress that your body has to deal with in order to get rid of it. If you think you need a certain nutrient and you start taking it, and you take it in isolation to other nutrients that are maybe cofactors, you can actually deplete your body of all the cofactors, which are needed as cofactors for many other processes in your body. And over time, you can end up depleting certain pathways of elimination, pathways of detoxifying, pathways of absorption, because you're taking supplements unnecessarily, well, taking them in the wrong doses, you know, and everybody's different. So how do you know what you really need? And the other thing that is interesting about, then you can go into testing. Okay, so you could go and test everything and get one of these functional medicine practitioners and get everything tested. And test for zinc. You can do your hair, you can do your urine, you can do your feces, you can do a whole complete thing, you can do your hormones, you can do everything. And then you get given a prescription and an interpretation by a very qualified, highly trained person who goes, right, I can interpret these results for you and I can issue you with these supplements. And that whole thing can cost thousands. But what is the point in testing once? There's no point testing once. You need to test after taking the supplements to see if it's worked. Otherwise, what are you going to do? How are you going to know? Because how are you going to understand what this thyroid out of balance means, this, and this? I mean, all you know is, I feel like this and I don't want to feel like this anymore. What can I do to change the way I'm feeling? And you don't just want that feeling for now, you want it for longevity as well. And so sometimes I think it can be quite tricky, these functional medicine, I don't know, whoever does all these testing, it's quite misleading if you don't then say, be prepared to test again. And the amount of people I know that only test once and then take lots of supplements, and then they get hooked on these supplements and they think they need to keep taking them because maybe one symptom's gone, but then something else pops up because you've gone through another transition, you've had a baby, you've been through a stress, you've had this. I mean, you really need to empower yourself and navigate this world yourself. And it's all about education for me. I'd spend a lot of time with clients, and I found that a lot of it is about education. My reports that I create are pages long, and I think it's too much, but I can't help myself because I'm sort of like, where this person is at is they don't understand. They need to learn a bit more about why it's so important that they do this. I'm going to use their blood as leverage. Look at your blood, see this here, this means this, and I think you need to do this, so you're gonna have to change this lifestyle habit. And I want to give them the motivation to change, because I know that if they did change that lifestyle habit, they would start to feel better, and they'd be like, right, what's next? What can I do now? And they'd understand it. They'd understand that they've hydrated themselves, or they've added more minerals into their diet, or they've done this and it's really made a difference. Some people, just drinking more water can make a huge difference. But you have to work out where the person is, because they may not have the money to spend on all the supplements or the health foods, or they may not have the time, they may not have the resources, they may not have the help and the support at home, they may be busy. So everything is all around, what can this person cope with in terms of change, so that you don't have more stress in their life, but they gain a bit of benefit and they aim towards their goals.
So I think there, Shira, we can, talk about what you're sharing there is really the thing that me and Philip keep banging on about in our shows is fresh fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds is a really good place to start. And of course, bringing in not necessarily organic, but pesticide-free food, wild food, organic food, and start to look at not at quantity, but actually at quality. And I think a lot of people would really benefit from changing that mindset of, oh, this is cheap and that's expensive, to, oh, that's quality, that's going to help me build good blood cells, that's going to help clean my blood, that's going to because it's going to empower them, right?
Yeah, and it's all about value, isn't it? I mean, we have to learn to value things differently if what we have been valuing has led us to a point of ill health. So a lot of people are trained to think there's something wrong with me, I must get a diagnosis. And if I can find and pinpoint what's gone wrong, I can get a medicine to fix it. So that's a kind of subliminal programming and training, which happens to all of us. We can't escape that, and it happens to my clients. And so you have to start thinking, well, help people change that thought pattern to, okay, what I've been doing so far has led to this. And they have to start really believing that what they're eating and what they're drinking causes changes in their body or affects their body. And that's number one. We may feel that that's an absolute accepted and given, but I see the general, I see a lot of people that come to me and they don't have that as an actual belief.
Yeah,
so that's often the first thing I have to deal with, is if you can value what you're putting into your body and understand that the value of that, maybe you'll change, and that is leading to these blood cells looking this way. And you don't want your blood cells looking this way, because those blood cells looking that way is what's causing you discomfort.
Exactly. It's moving from, it's society, it's like this symptom, everything's like, we got to find the symptom, these symptoms. It's like, okay, symptoms, okay, here you need to take this drug, or even biohacking is like doing that a lot. It's like, okay, you have this symptom, you need to do this, instead of like, well, what's the cause? Where is the terrain? And that's, live blood, and it really helps
education.
Is to see the foundation, so you get educated and inspired to make healthy changes, and not just go, what's the next fix? And like you say, we all do that in some ways. Like, oh, cool, like new supplement, I'm gonna try it. But it's like, in general, it's like, what's
short? Let's take the short route. I want the short route. I want the immediate gratification. I don't want to have to work at this. Why do I have to work at health?
It's immediate gratification. We're all trained in that a lot, and it's like, and there's doctors are the authority, and like only they have the cure, and it's just like, and even they don't have a cure. It's like, there's no cure. There's just life.
Yeah. And that simple belief and understanding of what you put into your, obviously we know that what you think affects your health. Well, what you put into your body affects your health, and it's amazing how that is just looked over time and time again. So if you were to value that and make a connection of what you're putting into your body as building the cells of your body, and therefore if you're starting to feel bad, it's not because a lot of people want a diagnosis, because it just gives them a direction and somebody else to take responsibility for it as well. But the problem is it's because we don't have the education about our bodies. So if we had the education, that X leads to Y leads to Z, we can then go, now I've got a symptom in my skin. What could that mean? Am I allergic to this? And so I'll put some cream on to try and change it. Or, there must be something in my diet that I'm allergic to. But obviously the body's an unbelievable complex system, and it's intelligent. And so these are signals, something coming out in your skin. Why would it come out in my skin? Well, it's because it's trying to eliminate something. Why is it eliminating through your skin? Because maybe my elimination system is a bit blocked, and so it's overflowing. If you had those sorts of connected thoughts based on education of how your body works in a connected way, not in a reductionist way, in the way that medicine is taught, you would be able to follow a thought through of like, oh, something's going on here. Okay, I need to look at my diet. Let me just simplify things. Let me take things out. Let me just get rid of stress. Let me do this. Let me do that. Rather than straight away, I need a cream for my skin, which is, again, it's a suppressing thing. And what you're going to get from the doctor as a cream is, a lot of the time they issue you with a treatment as a guy, it might work. It might work, it might not. Come back if it doesn't, and then we'll go for the next one. So, that's not very good service, is it? Why are you giving it to me if you don't know if it's going to work? Do you know why this is happening? No, I don't. But, try this. Could be this.
Yeah, that's the how we've got so far down this line of our body as a machine, it doesn't matter what you put in it, on it, or around it, it'll
Mm,
work. It's like
yeah.
how on earth did we
Well,
get to that point?
it's because it's so amazing. Nature's design is far too complex and yet simple at the same time, but far too complex. We are an open cybernetic system, which means that we have information coming in from many different inputs, sensory inputs, and we are also constantly in flux inside our body with billions and billions of things happening in nanoseconds, femtoseconds, which is the quantum time particle, happening without our brain even having knowledge of it. We don't even know. And we shouldn't know, because if we did know, we'd explode in our heads with all the information and the feedback. So we are switched off to this orchestra, and we're only alerted when there's a problem and when there's a signal needing to be sent, because this organism can't take care of itself. It needs to tell the brain, go drink, go eat, go rest, go run, go stop. It has to lead us to the thing that the body needs, because it can't get it itself. It can only break itself down so much. So you end up with people wasting away, or you end up with different weaknesses in different organs, because the body has had to catabolize different bits of itself because it's starving and it can't keep the heart. There's a hierarchy. The brain, the heart, really important organs. It will starve the other organs to keep them going. So when we get to a chronic disease, there's been a lot of imbalance leading up to that point, which is why if nutrition was like, hey, take this pill and you'll be finished, it'll be clear people would be doing nutrition all the time, because you can't undo a chronic disease in 2 months or 2 weeks of eating lettuce. You just can't, or kale. You just can't undo it. It has to be, you have to walk back down the path that your body has gone on to try to unwind the story. You're walking into a dead end and you've got to come back out, and you've got to turn around, and you've got to have this open field that you can choose to frolic in. So to do that, you have to turn around and come back, and that means stopping all the little habits and all the little things you've been doing along the way and start introducing new ones and undoing the story. And that allows a regeneration of your body, because it has the capacity to regenerate. It has the capacity. We can keep cells functioning optimally for quite a long time. If you bathe them in the right fluids, they will keep going. They won't die prematurely. So really, it's all about aging. Health is all about aging, isn't it? Ill health is all about aging quickly. Sorry, I just heard a bird go. I think we've got a parakeet out there.
I
That's
heard
quite
it too.
unusual.
It's lovely.
Yeah, it might have been a woodpecker, a baby
I think
woodpecker.
that sounded like I think it sounded like a green woodpecker.
Oh, a green woodpecker. Yeah, you're right. You might be. We've got lesser spotted ones around here. I've never seen a green one. I think I just did.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So what would you say? I had a question then. What was it? What would you say is the most common lifestyle thing that people do that you find yourself saying you need to change that? What would you say is the most common one with your clients?
Okay. Mm. So varied. People are so varied.
Maybe
Um,
hydration. Hydration's got to be big, right?
yeah. Yeah, hydration is big. But I do get a lot of people, see, with live blood analysis, you get a lot of people that are quite high achievers in health, like yourself, Phil. They really want to achieve high, they want good health. So a lot of them are already drinking loads, but it's not absorbing. So I think what I like to, rather than focus on the negative thing that people are doing, I like to say the one thing that everyone could benefit from.
Yep, that's kind of what my
Because,
question was getting to,
yeah.
really.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
I jumped you. I'll tell you
yeah,
why. Because I find there's too much shame and guilt
absolutely. Yep.
around food. And I always focus on the things you can add in rather than take away. As soon as you start taking away stuff, you bring in the psychosis of it all. And sometimes people come into my clinic and go, please don't tell me I have to give up coffee, you know, and they're so relieved when I go, you don't have to give up coffee. And that's before I even know how much coffee they're drinking. Because I know that if I can get them to just add in something, that stuff will take care of itself, right? So once it's a natural process of letting go of old habits, once you have started integrating new ones. And I know there's the one thing that you can do that you can integrate into your life that will give results and make you veer away from negative habits, and that is juicing, without a doubt.
That's what that comes up in every show, I think.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And there are so many different ingredients you can put in it.
Yeah.
It's so absorbable. You know, it's a colloidal fluid. It's full of minerals, great for the pH. You can add things to it as well. You can put drops of this and drops of that in so that you can really deliver nutrition through the mucosal lining, under the tongue. You know, it's great. And so I advise clients to do it in a really easy way. So simple process. If you try to get them to buy a really expensive juicer, spend hours chopping up organic vegetables and all the rest of it, you're not really going to get very far. I do insist that they use organic as much as possible, because there's no point concentrating pesticides in a liquid and drinking it. There's just no point doing that. So
however though,
yeah,
a non-organic juice has got to be better than McDonald's.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. There's levels to this. Absolutely, there are levels to this, of course.
It's about compared to what, isn't it?
Yes, yes, compared to what exactly. So, you know, it depends. And my advice is always measured against where my clients are at. I'm not going to start talking about complex kind of, you know, dietary recommendations if they eat very simply or they eat very mainstream.
Yeah.
You know, there's just no point doing it. So but the juicing thing is a good one. And you know, you can make it palatable for most palates.
So what would you say for people? What's your kind of, have you got a juice that you've found that over the years people that you can say, I think one of the first ones I started on was carrot, apple, ginger, lemon. Is there what that seems to be, that you found people go, oh yeah, I'll have a go at that?
Well, I try to encourage people to find flavors that they like. So I give them a menu and I'll have something green so they can choose from parsley, coriander, mint. Coriander's quite hardcore. And then, you know, something like cucumber and celery, fennel. Then leafy greens, they could choose lettuce, they could do kale, they could do chard. And then the little add-ons would be something sweet, so pear or apple, a lime or a lemon, and then a bit of ginger and a bit of turmeric. And so people sort of tend to, I give them a little, I find out, what do you like? Do you like mint? Do you like this? Do you like that? And I'll give them a sort of a recipe that I know will have a little element of all of those in that they'll like. And so they're more likely to go for it again. And the other key thing is to not make the process difficult. I recommend, you know, those blenders. Are we allowed to say the name of any products?
This is our show. You can say whatever you like.
We have no rules on this call.
No rules. NutriBullets. So NutriBullets really easy, really quite affordable, and there are others that are like it that are cheaper. So, and you just chuck all your veg and a little bit of fruit and all the other bits into the cup with a bit of water, blitz it. Only a little bit of water, so it's going to be a really thick, heavy mush that you then put through a muslin cloth or a juice bag or a jelly bag or a nut milk bag or whatever you're going to use. Squeeze out all the liquid and drink that. And that process can take 5 minutes max with a clean up as well. And so for busy people that don't want to integrate really fancy stuff and don't want to buy a big fancy, you know, twin gear cold press juicer that has warranty for 40 years, but you know, if you're going to use it twice because there's like this bit to wash and that bit to wash and that gets stuck and that gets stuck, it's like, can't do that every day.
So just to add on to that NutriBullet thing, folks, actually eBay, whether you're in America or the UK or anywhere else in the world, actually eBay's amazing because you can now pick up a NutriBullet for 25 quid, 30 quid, you know?
Yeah.
So don't just go on eBay, go on your local Gumtree, whatever it is, search it out because you know, ask your friends. Someone's gonna have one sat in their cupboard they're not using because
definitely someone's got them in the cupboard not using.
I mean, there must be like a gazillion NutriBullets now in the garage somewhere in the world. I'm pretty sure that you know, and actually,
we need a census of NutriBullets.
And you know, I think actually, as a place to start, I think that's a brilliant idea. And I just want to encourage everybody: if you've got health products that you're looking for, just go on eBay. Just go on eBay, type in what you want, and literally 99% of the time, there's one on there. It's brilliant. And you know, 25, 30 quid, you got yourself a NutriBullet.
And it's a life changer.
Yes.
It is literally a life changer, not just for juicing. You can do smoothies, raw soups,
Great for salad dressings.
Salad dressings, pestos, hummus.
Yeah, and you know, and then because most of the time everyone says, "Oh, you need a Vitamix." Well, I mean, they are amazing. Except I started off with a Philips £20 juicer from not juicer, a £20 blender from Argos, and you know, I wondered why I couldn't make really good soups in it and stuff. But
it's a bit chunky.
yeah. Then I went out. Then I went out to the States and trained, and they had Vitamixes, and it's like, oh, that's why I used to get the separation between the liquid and the solid, and you know, but so you just got to start. A £20 juicer will get you started, and if you
go down to find your local farmer's market and just go and buy a bag of veg that way. It's much cheaper in a farmer's market. So, you know, get organic.
What I did, whether it was a blender, a juicer, whatever I've done, I started at the cheap end like everyone else did. And then what I did, I either burnt it out or I upgraded it. And what I've done is whenever I've upgraded something, I've given away my cheap one. So, you know, I started off with a cheap little centrifugal juicer again from Argos, 25 quid. Then I upgraded it and gave it away.
Yeah.
You know,
any juice is better than no juice. So...
yeah, you know, my partner bought her son's a juicer off of I can't remember, Amazon or eBay, and it was like 55 quid, and it's a little single gear juicer,
single auger. Yeah, I've had one of those.
It's like 50 odd quid, and actually, I mean, it isn't a patch on a £500 juicer, but it's a £50 juicer, and you get a glass of juice. It's brilliant.
Yep, brilliant.
So you know, on that note with you, Sarah, that's what I want to encourage people to do, is if you're just dabbling your toe in, go buy something off of eBay, buy a second-hand blender, buy a second-hand juicer, buy a second-hand food processor. It doesn't matter. Just go and buy one. Play.
Yeah, don't get caught up in the nitty-gritty of whether it breaks the cell wall open or not, and whether you can drink it after 30 minutes or not, or whatever. You just, because there's other things you can do. Like I buy vitamin C powder, so ascorbic acid, which is the pure vitamin C, and I put a little bit of that in to preserve the juice, so I can make a juice stretch for 2 days.
So could you use things like sodium ascorbate, magnesium ascorbate, or calcium ascorbate to do the same thing?
You can use sodium ascorbate, but the others I don't think will preserve it in the same way.
Interesting.
It has to be the vitamin C.
So it has to be the straight ascorbate, really.
Yeah, but actually that can be quite acidic. So ascorbic acid is good if drink it through a straw, because you don't, the acid can get to your teeth. And it's good. The ascorbic acid can be quite good at killing off bacteria in the gut as well. So you can deliver ascorbic acid that way as an antibacterial, to help with dysbiosis and things like that, and maybe even Helicobacter pylori in the gut and things like that. But the sodium ascorbate also, so therefore, if you don't want anything too acidic, and the sodium ascorbate is buffered with sodium, and sodium, our body loves sodium, so it's unlikely that sodium will cause an imbalance of sodium, because our body's very well set up to balance it out. You know, but some people don't want the sodium, so they wouldn't have that.
Yeah.
So you can use ascorbic acid, but with ascorbic acid, I would take it through a straw.
Yeah. Yeah, I've found over the years that for me, magnesium ascorbate is the one, because it seems to be gentle enough for me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I mean, I don't know about its. Well, maybe it would be. Yeah, maybe it would be okay. I'm not sure how preserving it would be. I have a feeling it's the you know, the raw acidity of ascorbic acid that actually is the preserving factor.
Absolutely. Is there any other question you've got, Phil?
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, just adding lemon juice to it is gonna preserve it too. So
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
pretty
citric
much
acid.
most juices, you put lemon juice in there. So
Yeah,
that's going to be key. So and just putting it, and if you put it in a glass jar with, like, the canning jar, and fill
very
it up
important.
to the top, fill it up to the top, and then seal it, and it will just help preserve it a little longer. So
yeah, the glass jar is very important, because you can extract the plastics out of the plastic with the acids in the juice. So store it in. But then we're getting into the nitty gritty, and that's going to put people off.
Yeah.
So
right.
just drink your juice straight away and don't store it.
Yeah.
Figure it out, yeah. And it's really just like, that's what we're all about. Is like, what simple changes can people make today?
Yeah.
And what's going to motivate them and inspire them? And that's what I love about Live Blood, because it's instant feedback, or looking at and starting to learn the body too. Like you're talking about the skin. Oh, there's a skin thing going on there. Well, okay, so is there something that I am doing that's causing that? Is my terrain off? Am I not taking care of myself? So looking for things that give us feedback to inspire us to make changes.
Yeah, and to understand what they mean.
Yeah, we're not going to focus on what you're doing wrong, because it doesn't really matter. It's what can you add in, so that's going to then be a catalyst for change in your body, like bringing in enzymes, bringing in juices, bringing in whole food. It starts to shift the body, and then you start to crave that more. And we want this to be a fun journey for people.
And the thing I was talking about earlier, about the potential of the cell and the zeta potential, what I love about juices is that the juice gets absorbed into the tissues and the fluids of the body really easily, and it alters and assists in the pH homeostasis, with highly assimilable minerals.
Yeah.
And the phytonutrients in there are really amazing at helping the immune system as well. So that cell potential, you're reaching it, you're getting closer to it by juicing, because you're adding more electrolytes, and you're adding more electrical charged particles, and you're also allowing hydration to happen much, much easier. So the fluid inside the cell is nice and balanced, and the fluid outside the cell is nice and balanced. And so you'll have this lovely in and out of the cell as it's, getting on with doing its job. And the cell membrane, that's a little bit trickier to get right, because that involves proteins and fats, and they're a little bit more, there's a lot more going on to absorb those. But if you get the hydration and you get the minerals right, you're flooding and bathing your cells in a really lovely fluid that is going to help rebalance your inner terrain. So that's why it's so powerful.
Yes, so my favourite thing, talking about adding in, that I love to do, which is really easy and a NutriBullet is great for it, is watermelon. Buy a watermelon, cut it up, chuck it in the blender, and just drink it. I mean, it doesn't get any easier than that. And that for me, I find in the middle of the afternoon, it's just like rocket fuel.
Yeah.
It goes in. It re-energizes me. It sustains me, and I love it because in the afternoon it's really, really simple. You just literally cut it up, take the innards out, throw it in the
Mm,
blender, blend the
mm.
whole lot, seeds as well, and drink it. It's incredible.
It's quite easy to assimilate because there's not much fiber in watermelon.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so it's yeah, it gets it, you can easily absorb that liquid. The fiber doesn't slow it down so much.
Yeah, so that's what I love about watermelon is you don't even have to juice it to get the benefits from it.
No, that's true.
It's very, very, very cost effective. You know, you're getting a 2 or 3 kilo or 5 or 6 pound watermelon in the UK for like £2.50.
Mm,
It's
yeah.
incredible.
It's really useful too if you're doing a lot of physical work. So you
Yeah,
must find that quite refreshing for you when you're doing your physical work.
yeah. When I'm building, or or if when I come if I get home at 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and I'm wilting,
Mm,
I've learned now. I do I do one of these jars.
hydrate. Yeah.
One of those jars. It's about a litre, so about 2 pints of watermelon, and that's it's because what Phil was talking about, hydration. What that does is it hydrates us and feeds us all in one. So it's an incredible stopgap when you get in from work, and it doesn't really matter what work you've done. You get in, you're really hungry, you don't know what to do.
Yeah, you have to drink first. Yeah.
Yeah, quick
Yeah.
watermelon, fired in. Then what I find is that then gives me the brain power to think
Mm.
about what do I really need.
That's because your brain is the thirstiest organ. It needs the most water.
Yeah, and that
And
and
that's
that.
why when you're tired and you've been working and you come home, that's another really good tip is to drink first. Absolutely. Because if you just give yourself half an hour to hydrate, you'll be less stressed about, oh God, now I've got to make myself some food and it's got to be healthy and I don't want to do healthy. I just want to lie on the sofa and pig out.
Yeah,
So that break of right, come home, change my state,
yeah,
glass of water, relax, breathe, barefoot walking in the garden if you can,
yeah,
something like that. Just change your state and then approach the next stage.
yeah.
Don't try to think too far ahead because people are exhausted when they come home from work.
Absolutely, and that's
Yeah.
like you say, it's actually just thinking out loud what you're saying now. A herb tea, a
Yep,
herb,
even a herb tea, simple. A spoonful of molasses is quite good too, full of minerals. It's not necessarily the hydration thing, but it's like you could drink water with it. And sometimes I mix molasses in with hot water and have that. And
I
that's
guess
quite nice.
I guess on that's really simple is you could get like half a lemon and squeeze it into your water and put molasses in it, and I
Yeah,
imagine that would be amazing for hydration and
amazing.
feeding the brain.
Yeah, and all those minerals, amazing.
What a lot
And iron.
what happens to a lot of us, and I think people don't realize this, is we get home from work, we're tired, we're worn out, we're exhausted, we can't think, so
No.
we grab some crap.
Yeah,
But
something
actually,
easy. And usually trans fats, hydrogenated fats,
yeah. So
carbs, refined carbs, loads of salt.
so this is kind of mine and Phil's plan, is actually how can we help people with simple little tips.
Yeah,
So water, lemon, molasses, melon, honey. I
yeah,
didn't. I meant lemon, not melon. Um, but something to hydrate the drain. But the thing that I found is I need more than just the hydration.
yeah.
So
Okay, you need the fat too, don't you?
what what the watermelon does for me, because you've got the seeds as well.
Mm,
So what the watermelon does is it hydrates me, and it feeds my brain,
mm.
because the fructose from the watermelon just goes straight to my brain, and I can think again. I can go, oh yeah, okay, I am gonna have that salad. I'm not just gonna eat an apple.
Yeah, you
I'm
make
actually
better choices, don't you?
make
You,
better choices. Yeah, and,
mm,
and that's what we really are aiming to do with our show that we're doing, is to encourage people to. And I love what you said as well, because that's with our philosophy, is to
mm,
add something in that's simple,
mm.
make it cost effective, and actually stuff that works.
Yeah.
That
But you
works.
know how we all crave a crunch, don't we? And that's the thing
Yes,
that's often missing in any health food
yes,
thing is a crunch. I'm always looking for a crunch because
yeah,
I'm addicted to crisps. I can't have them in the house.
yeah,
And I'm always going, no, you're not having the crisps. And that comes from childhood and all sorts of stuff going on.
yeah,
But I have found a hack. Does anybody want to know my hack for crunch?
I do, yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, it may not actually be that healthy, but it's healthier than crisps. Okay. So you know those poppadoms that you can get that are raw?
No.
I don't know.
No.
No.
Okay. Do you know what a poppadom is?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
I'm
trying to
Indian.
gauge your education here. Where are you at with poppadoms? Do you know what they are?
Some Indian food thing, wraps.
Yeah.
And that's
Well, they're
deep fried,
made out
right?
of, they're usually fried, and they're made out of lentil flour or chickpea flour
Yeah.
with a bit of salt and water, and they're made into a paste, and then they roll them out really wafer thin, and then they usually fry them. So then they're laden with oil and they're fried, and it's just not good for you. But you can get them before they're fried, and they're like these pieces of paper, and you put them in the toaster,
Really?
and they expand and pop. And when you get them out, they're just like they've been fried in oil, but they haven't been fried in oil, and they're crunchy and they're brilliant. And you can use them to dip things. So I get guacamole, or I make a salsa. And that's the crunch factor, because that can often really tip people over the edge if they don't have something crunchy, like a tortilla chip and a crisp, or a chip, or this, that, you know.
I did the raw food thing, which was nuts because I needed that crunch.
Yeah, you can dehydrate nuts and they're great, but that's quite a long process. You need a dehydrator, blah blah
Yeah,
blah, and you know, you got to soak your nuts first, and you got to do this. But when you come home, grab one of these poppadoms, put it in the toaster. 30 seconds later, you've got crunch.
Yeah.
Beat that. It's not raw.
You could always do celery, just crunch on some celery, but not as exciting for people. I get it.
Although, the celery then becomes all about the dip.
Yes,
Right.
the celery becomes all about the dip. Yes.
Because the celery is really actually, well, unless you hate celery, and there's quite a few people that do hate celery.
There are a few people who hate celery.
Celery just becomes a really good vehicle to experiment with dips to get that crunch. And you're right, Phil. Celery gives you an amazing crunch, and it then becomes about the dip.
Yeah, it's the same for the poppadom. I know it's not raw and it's not like pure, but
Anal, that's fine.
it's made from lentil flour, chickpea flour,
Yeah,
so it is vegan and it
really
is
important.
healthy-ish. So
Well, it gets you off the chips. Like I kind of slid, and there's been some stress over the years. And as we started this show, I was still eating chips. Like I was getting organic chips, which I was 100% raw for 15 years, and I was really strict. And then kind of got into a stressful kind of job thing, and then I started eating crisps or chips, as they call them here, and it's just and I got on this show with Phil, and it's like. Wait, he was like telling me off for eating them, and it's like okay,
there's that shame again.
No, I didn't tell you off, Phil. I said I could see it in your face.
Yeah, but he felt shame, so it felt like telling off.
Oh, yeah, I get
No, he didn't. He didn't tell me off. He inspired me, actually. It was just like, well, if I'm doing this show, they need to go. So it's like, I can't be doing a health show and eating crisps. So,
and do you know what? That for me is a motivation too.
It was motivation. I was inspired.
Yeah.
I didn't feel bad about it.
No, but knowing that I'm teaching others how to take care of themselves and change their lifestyle, that motivates me every day to make good choices about what I'm feeding myself. And I've got 2 children, so obviously I was actually raw and vegan when I had my first child 18 years ago. And I raised him vegan and raw till he was about 6, I guess. I don't know, maybe till he went to school and it got a bit tricky. But yeah, so for me, it's not just like the choices I make for myself, it's also the choices I make for my kids.
Yeah, wow.
And knowing all we do about genetics and how we inherit our parents' strengths and weaknesses, and that when you have a child, you are starting again, or you want to give them the best possible platform for them to be as healthy as possible. And so that really made me take care of myself better, because I was like, I can't let my child see these habits, and I can't let my child eat these things, because he's building his cells, he's building his brain, he's building his guts, he's building everything, and I don't want to start those habits. So that was quite motivating. And now it's my clients that motivate me, and my students that I teach as well. It's like I do a lot of showing my own blood throughout my courses, and talking about it, because my blood's really easy accessible, so I can't get away with much.
You can't hide there. Wow.
I just wanted to say, Shara, about being inspired. So I was inspired about the B12 thing because it was right there in my face on the screen. And I found some B12 patches that are useful.
Oh yeah, you mentioned those, yeah.
And I found some a B12 squirt, which is really good. It's all vegan.
Okay.
And I found what's the highly absorbable B12 you suggested that I got? What's it called?
Transdermal.
No, I haven't found that yet.
Oh, okay.
Liposomal B12 I found.
Oh, liposomal, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got that. Someone said you're going to overdose, aren't you? I said I've just got to get it in somehow.
Well, it's quite a tricky one, isn't it, to absorb?
Yeah.
Because it is tricky to absorb. So you do want to try different routes.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see, because obviously a blood cell will live for 120 days if it's healthy and your body's healthy.
Yep.
It gets injured through circulation. I mean, you can imagine the heart is pumping and the blood's getting squeezed through tiny sinuses in the spleen and all sorts. So those cells, if they're not robust enough, they get ripped open, they get broken, they get damaged, and they're no longer viable. But if they're good, healthy cells, they'll live for 120 days. So when I'm looking at someone's blood, I can see that there's an issue. So I always gauge in percentages. I think, well, I've scanned this sample. I can now assess that this person has 10% microcytes, 20% macrocytes, and this all adds up to a possible B12 issue. So this person now needs to absorb B12. Why are they not absorbing B12? What's in the diet? How is the digestion working? Let's fix all that and make all those changes, and then maybe you need supplementation. And so it takes a while for the fact that I saw any B12 deficiency means that it's been there for a while, because the B12 isn't in the bone marrow where it should be, so that you can produce healthy cells. And every cell that replicates needs B12 because it's the DNA. It's how you replicate DNA. So it's quite important. And the red blood cells are like the canary in the coal mine that can signal B12 issues. And it takes like 6 years to drain your B12 reserves in your liver. If you drink alcohol, and in fact, binge drinking alcohol depletes one session of binge drinking will deplete 1 year of B12 from your liver. So you can imagine how that can dwindle over time quite quickly.
Wow.
So when you start taking B12 and you start adjusting your diet and shifting things so that you can absorb the B12 that you do have in your diet, your red bloods, we're hoping it's going to get into the bone marrow, where it will then affect the production of the stem cell into the red blood cell, and we'll get normal red blood cells.
Wow.
And so given, I would say, 2 months, which isn't 120 days, but then by 2 months' time, half your red blood cells would have regenerated. And if you follow, 2 months is quite a long time to follow some kind of supplementation plan. But there's no point seeing the blood sooner than that, because you won't see that many changes because of the regeneration patterns. So you want to give your body time. So you've got to keep it up, but give your body time to regenerate. And so hopefully I'll see your blood again, Phil, and we will see a change in those blood cells, because they will have been 50% of them will have been regenerated, possibly more, in 2 months' time.
Wow, brilliant. So out of the guys that are watching us now live, are there any questions that anyone's got that they would like to ask before we wind this up? They're not coming in thick and fast.
Brilliant.
Well, you should have asked that a while ago and given them time to think of a question.
I actually did I did ask that on Zoom.
Oh, did you? Oh, okay.
I put a question out ages ago on Zoom to say, do you guys have any questions? So I have done that already. Phil, is there anything else that you think we need to cover?
This is fantastic. I think we could talk for hours on this topic, and yeah, it's just brilliant. I love this stuff. So it's really good. I was just gonna, reiterate the hydration, and that's like my number one thing. It's like first thing in the morning, my hydration. I get home from work, it's like big glass of water and lemon. And then also, like if I go out to a restaurant and eat or whatever, which I do, there's some cool healthy restaurants here, and it's like I drink a lot of water before I eat, you know, so so that's talking about hydrating the lining of the stomach. So hydration is really critical, and that's a critical habit to form. So
It is, especially, I just want to touch on that you were talking about drinking before you eat. It's quite important that you don't drink while you eat, and you give yourself space before eating for that water to be absorbed, so that you don't dilute your stomach acid and your digestive enzymes when you do eat, because you want to absorb everything, and water can sometimes dilute it and change the pH of the stomach. And yeah, but you're totally spot on with getting the stomach lining plump with water. It needs the hydrogen ions for the stomach acid, but it also needs to plump the mucus lining so that the acid in the stomach doesn't burn through. And your body will know whether you're hydrated or not, and it will stop producing stomach acid, because it will say, I'm protecting you. I'm not going to chuck a load of acid in here when your stomach lining can't take it. It just won't do that. So the hydration is often really important, yeah, for digestion and absorption and assimilation.
How long would you suggest people need to leave it between drinking their water and eating their food?
Depends how much they drink, but half an hour I would give yeah, and don't drink half an hour before eating.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that don't drink at all, and then when they get to eat, they start eating and they get really thirsty because there's not enough saliva and juices to help the food go down, and the body goes, you need to put some water in with this food. Or they're eating quite dry food as well. That can often make you thirsty.
Okay,
so it counterbalances it.
Fiona's iPhone has just asked, how much water in a day, Shara? I've heard overhydration is equally not good for the body.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. So how do you know if you're hydrated? Well, the problem is we can't rely on the thirst reflex.
No, absolutely not.
That's the problem. And so often you have to really know yourself and know how your body responds on days when you don't drink as much to days when you do drink as much. Now, overhydration is really, I would never drink more than 2 pints in an hour. Because that would be too much water, and your body would be, you can end up bloating your cells with that much water. So
I think it's pretty hard to overhydrate. You have to really work hard at it.
People have overhydrated. They have.
Yeah.
And
it's usually when they're stressed, or they've been, maybe doing an event like a marathon or something like that. But like on day to day, like, I don't know, I just can't imagine overhydrating. Like,
yeah. I mean, so you always hydrate in the morning, like you said, Phil. That's one of the best times to hydrate. You also have to take into account things like any juices you drink, any herbal teas you drink. The food that you eat can be quite wet, which is hydrating you too. In fact, it's hydrating you better than a glass of water.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you have to just measure it. You have to be aware of what you're drinking. And if you're thirsty all the time and you're drinking lots of water, but you're still thirsty, then there's something wrong. That's not normal. So something's going on there, and that's where you need to go and get some investigation. If I'm still thirsty and I'm drinking a lot, why is that? And some people don't want the inconvenience of going to the toilet, so they will just choose not to drink. And that's quite dangerous too. Some people don't want to wake up in the middle of the night to go to the toilet, and so they won't drink before going to bed. And so all of those little things are all sort of triggers for, actually, I need to get this right, because my hydration homeostasis is not working. My body still needs the water. What's going on inside? And that can be all sorts of different processes happening related to detoxification, to the kidneys, to stress, to hormones, all sorts of things that are maybe out of balance and putting your body in stress, therefore making it thirsty. And even though you're drinking water, it's not being retained. Because the interesting thing about hydration is that hydration happens in the colon. It doesn't happen in the stomach. So water doesn't stay in us because it's not fibrous. It's not, it's a liquid. So when we drink it, it's just plain water isn't that useful for hydrating. So that's why juices are great, because juices are really hydrating. You wouldn't have to drink pints and pints and pints of juice to be hydrated. You could drink a couple of juices a day, along with a few herbal teas and some nice raw food full of luscious water, because it's bursting with juiciness. Then that would hydrate you. So it's all getting the water into the colon. And this is something that I learned from Barbara Wren about how you hydrate. If the gut-brain connection we all know about, and the gut is always telling the brain whether it's hydrated or not. So if you're stressed out by something, the brain sends signals to the gut that it's stressed, and the gut stops absorbing water. And that then sends a trigger to all the cells to lock down. Don't let water out. We're in stress. We need that water to maintain all the processes that we now need to switch into, because we're on stress alert. So we have to divert the nervous system. We have to divert the circulatory system. We have to divert all these different things and start producing certain chemicals so that we get the cortisol going, the adrenaline going, and we're in stress. That's perceived stress or real stress. That stress then stops the body from absorbing water, and it stops the cells from letting go of water. So you then put cholesterol gets created by the body to put into the membrane. So the membrane becomes more solid and less permeable. So cholesterol is produced by the body in stress to protect the cell from dehydration. And it also changes that cell membrane potential, because the ingredients in the cell membrane are different now. So stress really does ruin us. It ruins our health completely. It stops us absorbing water. It changes the pH. Then you imagine that cell with all its little processes going on, it's dehydrating inside because it can't absorb any more water, and it can't release any toxic water. The fluids that contain all the messages that have to go in and out can't get in and out. So you're slowly sort of slowing down the production of your cells and slowing down their efficacy and their lifespan through being in stress or being dehydrated. They're both connected. Stress causes dehydration, dehydration causes stress. So it's like a catch-22. As soon as you're dehydrated, your brain gets told we're dehydrated, the brain produces the chemicals, we're dehydrated, and the whole body locks down. And then you've got to kind of coax the body out of that. You've got to coax the stress out, which is why PTSD is so damaging, and early childhood stress and trauma is so damaging, because it causes that stress reaction in the body at such a young age, when the developmental processes are happening, that it then affects them for the rest of their life. Adverse childhood events can affect you when you're older. And PTSD is so stressful that brain and that gut stress axis hasn't switched off. And so you end up with all these symptoms, sleeplessness, and all kinds of different problems, because your body's in stress all the time and you're overproducing cortisol and all this stuff. So we have to switch it off. Hydration switches off the stress. And this is what's in Barbara Wren's book called Cellular Awakening, which I know Phil has. But she taught this. This was one of the core principles of the work that we were doing, and the work we do with our clients is the hydration. So you need to get the hydration right. And one of the best ways to get hydration in the gut and help start that process of switching off the dehydration stress is to drink linseed tea.
That's the process, isn't it?
So linseed tea, for those that don't know it, it's a liter of water with a tablespoon of linseeds, any linseeds, golden brown, whatever. Boil it up. As soon as it reaches the boil, you turn it off, leave it overnight, and the next day you simmer it gently for about 45 minutes, and then pour off the water and keep the water, discard the seeds. That water, when it cools, will be like a jelly. So you've extracted all the lignans in the linseeds, and it'll be sort of, it won't taste of much. It's quite mild, nutty taste, but it's mucilaginous. So you've created a hydrogel that when you drink it will remain in the colon. So the colon has time to extract the water, and do that regularly, and you will hydrate, and you will also get very chilled. So anyone that has stress, whenever you're stressed, whenever you're finding you're not sleeping right, whenever change of seasons is a really good time to do it as well, so you don't dehydrate, especially now with the equinox coming up.
So how long would that litre, how many cups of linseed tea would you get out of that litre?
5 or 6 maybe, and so that would last maybe 2 days or 1 day, depending on how big your cup is. I would go for quite a big cup. It's nice. And you keep it in the fridge, it cools down and it goes very sort of solid. You have to drink it within the second day. It'll go cloudy when it's not right. Discard it then. And then I always boil the kettle, pour half of my cup with linseed tea, and then put a little bit of hot water in and mix it, whisk it up so it's not like ectoplasm, and then I can drink it.
Yeah. It's like egg white. So
yeah, it's really gloopy.
So should you be drinking that 1 litre every day then of that linseed tea?
1 litre, would you drink 1 litre? Well, maybe half to 2/3 of it. Yeah, every day. Yeah, if you want that as something to add into your routine, if you can, it's a little bit more bother than.
Yeah, I found that. So what about Irish moss? Is that useful for hydrating the colon?
Yeah, I haven't researched Irish moss. I mean, I've looked into. I know a friend of mine uses it quite a lot. So I haven't researched it enough. I love linseed tea, so I sort of feel like, is there anything to improve upon? There are ways you can do linseed tea. You can cheat with the linseed tea. So you can just put a teaspoon of linseeds in a cup, pour on boiling water, and just leave it to sit for a while. And you will extract some of the lignans that way. So you can drink it like that. You can also pound some linseeds and do the same thing and extract even more. So there's a quick way of doing it, a cheating way.
Okay.
So linseed flax, I have a good fun story about that. Like, I think it was about 15 years ago, Susan, my wife, was having a gallbladder attack, and linseed flax tea was one of the things that we did every day to basically, keep her gallbladder. She went through this intense pain, and I was looking at everything, and we were doing the flax linseed tea every day, and she still got a gallbladder, so.
Well, that's good. Thank God.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's good. No, linseed, I mean, these are simple things, aren't they, really? Nature provides these simple things. In fact, we all have them at our fingertips, but we've had that knowledge taken away, and so we don't carry that knowledge. We don't tell the stories of that knowledge. And I think this is probably one of the things that's so great about this show that you do, is that you're sharing the stories that are sharing the knowledge. I think storytelling is really powerful. And as much as it's great that I'm here talking about the things I've been educated about and that I share other people, often I think that the best stories are the ones of the clients that have taken control of their life through something and what they have found. And your story about your wife with the gallbladder and stuff, I mean, those stories are powerful for people.
Yeah, and actually talking about the gallbladder, I came from a place of about 97% liver failure. And when you did my blood, you said my liver was really strong. So that, that's a good way that we can rebuild our organs.
Liver's amazing. You can regenerate, and you've done a lot of work on yourself, to get to this point, which is fabulous. And that is the thing, isn't it? It's the empowerment of knowing that you can rebuild yourself. If you think about it, you're producing 2 million blood cells every second.
Wow.
So I know that's a lot, isn't it? That's a lot of work that the body does. But that gives you you've got opportunity every day to regenerate your cells every day.
So can you just say that again?
Just do something positive. 2 million.
So there's 2 million new red blood cells produced every second.
Every second. So and 2 million are taken out of circulation every second.
So that gives us a massive opportunity every second to change something.
Yeah.
How's that? How's that?
It's amazing.
How's that for a little fact, right? A little factoid.
Yeah.
Every second, you have an opportunity to do something potentially life-changing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every second.
So if you've got something wrong and you're down on yourself because of it, don't worry, because you can still change things. It's never too late.
Make a juice.
It's never too late. I'm really keen on this idea of no shame
Yeah.
and no fear.
that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
Yeah,
because people come into my that's something that Barbara Wren taught, is you make sure people leave you in less fear than they arrive. It's quite easy when you're doing blood analysis, because people are like, what are you going to tell me about my blood? And I'm like, you're wonderful, don't worry, it's okay. And they feel, you know, I don't have to say much to reassure them, and they feel less fear. But the thing about the blood is it can be very reassuring. Like you found, Phil, you know, you were expecting a horror story and you didn't get a horror story, and that made a difference to you mentally.
Yeah.
And I could see it in you, because you were kind of expecting this heavy news that you then have more work to do. And then there was actually a bit of relief, because actually it's not that bad. And some people come to me with you know, lots of symptoms, and I can look at their blood, and the dry blood especially can give you a really clear idea of someone's constitution, so their constitutional strength. And then I see that, and I can see a constitutional strength, and I explain to them, I said, you've got a good, strong constitutional strength. What does that mean? Well, it means that the genes that you were given, you know, if you can access them and get them switched on and working for you, you're going to regenerate. You've got the vitality in there. You know, you're not depleted. You can do something about it, and that can be really reassuring.
Brilliant. And I love that, because that's the thing that me and Phil do our best to bring, is that positivity and encouragement. You know, that's really what our aim is, isn't it, Phil? Is to encourage people and inspire people to make change, whether it be just eat a piece of melon, drink a glass of water, say something nice to yourself, say something nice. You know, a great practice, folks, as well, is just say something nice to someone every day.
Yeah, acts of kindness, small acts of kindness.
Random acts of kindness. I like that one. And
it's true.
You know, if there's someone sat behind you, we've got a little toll bridge locally to us, and it's not anymore since COVID, but it was 5p to get over. And something that's really nice is to give the guy 10p and pay for the person behind. It costs you 5p a day. It's a bit different. I did it once going over the Severn crossing, and it cost me about £8.
That's expensive. You know, you don't have to pay anymore.
There you go. That's that random act of kindness gone.
Free.
Yeah. So little random acts of kindness. You know, a guy today, I was, and actually, the more grateful I am, the more things I have to be grateful for. I was just here now, rushing around before the show, because down in Brighton, where I am, when I came to visit before, the students weren't in, so it was easy to park. And I'd forgotten that the students were back. So when I turned up, it's like, oh my word, I didn't allow enough time now to walk 3 miles to go and park the car in the middle of Brighton. So actually, I noticed at the road that there was a gap, and I've got a big van, and I started reversing into it. And this guy said, oh, I'll see you in. So the bloke stood at the back of the van, and the wife stood at the front of the van, and watched me into this tight parking space. And as luck happened, I just went straight in. And she said, you didn't need any help, did you? I said, it was really kind, because they just gave me that ability so I could just get on with it and not spend ages. You know, so
forward and back.
Really, so something like that. It's really kind. Seeing someone in their parking space, seeing someone across the road. Although actually now with the whole coronavirus nonsense, it makes it all difficult. So
it's much harder to be kind, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's interesting to share
smile.
a smile. Yeah, I mean, I love making eye contact with people and smiling, and it's really strange.
Yeah,
because you have to try to get the smile in your eyes, and it's quite interesting.
Yeah, that's true. Smiling with your eyes.
Smiling with your eyes.
Maybe actually what this is doing is it's challenging us to actually get that smile even more authentic.
Yeah.
Get that smile in your eyes instead of just that pretend smile that you get so often. Actually, it means I love that. It means you got to smile with your eyes. So
I'll tell you a benefit of wearing the mask, or that, you know, we won't go into the mask wearing thing, but when I'm in a shop and I've got to put my mask on, I'll do it. It's great because I can chatter away to myself without people thinking I'm mad. You know, when I'm thinking through what I'm going to cook, and I need that. Oh,
Oh, brilliant! Oh, so that's the bonus. No one
It's a
notices.
bonus. I can be me. I can talk to myself in
Yeah,
front of people in public.
that's interesting, isn't
And
it?
they can't tell it's coming from me because they can't see my mouth moving.
Brilliant.
We're going a bit random now. Do you
No,
think
no,
it's
yeah,
time to
we're
wrap
No,
up?
I think it's like the end of the call. I think we've been going nearly 2 hours, so this is fantastic call. So I think we could sit around a campfire with our feet on the earth, drinking juice for hours. So that's
We
good.
could.
Yeah.
Listen, if you want me back, I can another time and you want to see blood, because now I've
Yeah.
talked about it.
Yeah,
Yes.
let's
Um, I could set something up with my microscope so you can actually see the blood and have a
Okay.
look at what I'm talking about.
Do it. Great.
let's definitely let's do it. And maybe when Phil comes over to the UK, we'll have a hookup and we'll do barefoot juice, or Phil, we could
Yeah.
do a shamanic hot chocolate fire.
Yeah, I'll make the hot chocolate. That's my thing.
Do you want to walk on some hot coals as well?
Yes, let's do it.
No, I don't.
Come on, Phil. So, how do we learn more about you and like get on your courses? What the work that you do? Tell us a little bit more about that. We'll share it as well. So,
Okay, well, I run a training academy called Nature Cure Academy.
okay.
It's online, and we run a live and dry blood analysis course. It is on a platform where you can sign up and you get videos and lectures, and we do all the practical training. It's really well done because I've been teaching face-to-face courses for years, so I really know what people need to see and what people need to do in order to be able to take blood samples and learn how to mount it on a microscope and operate a microscope. It's quite a lot of technical stuff to learn, but I break it down bit by bit and make it really accessible. And there's all the theory as well, and all the history and the science and the philosophy, which I touched upon today. That's all included in the course too. And you learn live and dry blood.
Brilliant.
And you literally come out the other end of the course with a complete framework as to how to run your live and dry blood analysis session, create reports, and be able to give people meaningful information from that. We do have requirements for people to go on our course because we don't teach we don't do a full nutrition diploma. So we expect our students to already be trained in some form of modality, whether that's acupuncture, homeopathy, nutrition, naturopathy, herbalism, reflexology. Different courses all over the world vary with their content. So sometimes somebody that's done counseling has also done diet and nutrition training as well. So you do need an understanding of anatomy and physiology and basic diet and lifestyle nutrition as well. But we do deal with it case by case basis. So people apply and we can then assess them. I sometimes want more information to get clarification, but it's part of our ethics to only teach people that already have an understanding of health, an understanding of the body, and understanding of diet and nutrition, because this can be such an abused form of health screening used just to sell supplements, and it's damaged actually live and dry blood analysis over the years. So I'm quite I like to vet our students to make sure that they have the knowledge to be able to use this properly, and we train people all over the world. So it's at www.livebloodanalysistraining.com. And you can Google Nature Cure Academy. You can Google my name, Shaira Mastadi, live blood analysis. I'm sure you'll find me. I have a clinic in Lewis where I do face-to-face consultations. So I do conduct consultations with, clients there. And that I do under the title of Vitalize Nutrition, which I think did you put a link to it? I can't remember, but you can find, if you put Shaira Mastadi live blood analyst, you'll find me on Google.
Great.
Yeah, or even just Live Blood Lewis, or what did I put in? I put Live Blood Training UK. I think that's all I put in to find you the first time.
Okay. Yeah. I'll be there. I'll be one of the top on Google if you use Google.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it's been a pleasure working with you today, and I feel your vibrancy, your energy, your passion is just fabulous. So, and I think
Thank you.
I'm hoping our wonderful audience has received a lot of benefit from this. I'm really inspired by this show. So That's why we do it too, to inspire ourselves, inspire each
That's
other.
great. Would
Yeah,
you like a view of the Sussex countryside before I go?
Yeah,
Yes,
let's do it.
please.
For inspiration.
That's
You have
Yes.
to ignore the imperfect state of my bedroom
It's perfect.
in its imperfections.
Yes.
Can you see
Oh,
that?
Wow.
it's gorgeous. Look at those trees, green.
You don't have that in Arizona, Phil, do you?
No.
Your cactus and sand.
Yep.
There you go.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
All right. Well, been lovely talking to you guys.
Thank you so much for your time. We
Take
really
care and
appreciate that.
thank you for listening. Anybody out there who's listening.
Yep. So this has been the Phil and Phil show. We're available on philandphil.com, where you'll find a link to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube channels, where copies of our videos. This video will be up on YouTube online at some point. You're a star. That's right.
I couldn't work out how to do that.
So yeah, we just really appreciate everybody. If anybody loved this show, we do this for free. But if you want to make a donation, you can go to philandphil.com and make a PayPal donation, so we can continue doing this work. So Phil, anything you'd like to say to close the show?
Yeah, I'm really grateful for any of you that have come and spent your time with us and shared with us and have been inspired. Share us with other people. You know, as Phil says, we do this for free. We do it because we love it. This is this for me, for Phil and myself. It's both. This is our life. This is what we do, and really appreciate you giving us your time and sharing with us. So thank you very much.
Great. All right. Have a wonderful week, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
We are going soon.
I'm just doing my